Hello and welcome to another episode of the Reignmakers Fantasy Golf Show presented by DraftKings. Reignmakers, as always, on Mondays, I'm joined by my co-host TJ Lasik. TJ, how was the weekend?
Weekend was good. We got a Keegan Bradley victory here. So one of our favorites, someone that we're always looking to in Rainmakers and DFS and all of the things. So fun weekend there. I actually did not get to watch a ton of this tournament. I was more so just kind of watching the leaderboard on my phone, but pretty much a wire to wire performance from Keegan all the way. Couple other big names were close to the top of the leaderboard. Scotty Scheffler, of course, just continues to be in the mix with another T4. It's pretty much automatic at this point. How about you, Coop? I know you were spending more time playing golf this weekend than watching golf.
Yeah, it was a fun-filled weekend of golf for me, and in an IRL way. Played in a good friend of mine, their member guest tournament at his country club. Was a really fun time, which basically led to a lot of playing golf, a lot of having drinks at the clubhouse, and not a lot of watching too much golf. I think I watched probably a total of like 25 to 30 shots of golf. I was up and around most of the week for this tournament. But yeah, so I think the recap is going to be pretty mini. One thing that was nice, I fielded a lineup in the elite guaranteed contest, the 100K guaranteed contest. And it seems like when I watch tons of golf, I win no money. And if I watch very little golf, I win a good amount of money. So finished 53rd in that contest for a $500 score, which was really nice. Tony Finau, captain, really kind of pulled down my team. Everybody else kind of smashed. Had Brian Harman, had Scheffler, had Cantlay, and then had Hideki Matsuyama. Finau rounded out that group. Had the choice at captain of Matsuyama, Finau, or Harman. My big decision last week was Brian Harman or Adam Scott. Turns out I should have just opted for both of those guys over Tony Finau. Would have been better going that way. But it's really hard to fade someone like Tony, and I just think it's one of those kind of like, hey, you get fancy, and then Tony goes off. Tony still played perfectly fine. Finished T45, 9 under. The big killer for sure, which ultimately felt like a killer in the moment, but ended up, I don't think it really would have swung anything, was he shot an even par round of 70 on Sunday, which then took away the all rounds under 70 bonus. And I think, so many guys had that all rounds under 70 bonus. And then I had him as my captain, so then you're getting 7.5 points instead of the 5 points. That was a pretty big number of points to leave out there. I don't think for me, fortunately, it wouldn't have changed anything. Would have more solidified my position more in the group of payout for $500. But overall, a pretty good showing from the portfolio of cards that I had in that specific lineup. And I am continuing to attack Reignmakers at the rare and elite level by trying to just build the best singular team that I can. It ended up being that I had an Adam Scott team as a captain. It just didn't fall my way. Two guys missed the cut at -3. That if the cut goes to -3 would have had another 5 of 5 in the elite contest, but it didn't go my way there. I think it was Poston and Dylan Wu, I want to say, both were -3 and missed the cut on the number. So that would have changed a lot of things. So yeah, didn't watch a ton of golf, but overall, watching from my phone, like you said, was fun. It was nice to see that I was kind of squarely in the cash, and then had a nice little sweat on Sunday. I was basically watching Tony and Tony only, just because he is the captain of the anchor of that team. And I do like that element of Reignmakers. You really need the captain to hit in order to complete, running up the leaderboard. Unfortunately, Tony was not firing on Sunday. Harman picked up the pace for him on Sunday, shot at 64 on Sunday, which really helped. He was lower owns, and clearly this is an event that marketing your calendars, folks. We talked a lot about course history and the stickiness of the course history at the course there. What was it? TPC. For some reason, I'm blanking. River Highlands. I can't remember what the name of the course is there. But in general, the course history stickiness is something that was a big factor going in. And Harmon continued to crush. I think it's now 5 out of 6 years he's in the top 10, finished T2. So nice little statistic to note for next year's event for sure. Yeah, I think the other names on the board that you talked about, Scotty, and then Cantlay. I wrote up Cantlay last week. Cantlay tried to make Sunday really interesting. Shot 61 on Sunday. That ultimately looked like it was the only guy that was going to force Keegan's hand. But yeah, Keegan just played so well the whole time. 62, 63, 64, and a 2 under 68 to win by 3 shots. So he was by far and away the best golfer. Gained 15 plus strokes throughout the bag. Yeah, just an awesome performance by Keegan. Hometown kid too. I saw a lot of Twitter debates that like, hey, he's not really from here, but I believe they're on record saying that he's been at that tournament since he's basically been 10 years old, essentially. So pretty cool to see him have all of his family there. And, you know, the crowd was definitely pro Keegan crowd coming down 18. Had to be an awesome feeling for him.
Yeah, and tournament played as a Birdie Fest as we expected. Lots of low 60s rounds coming in, lots of mid 60s rounds. And yeah, so you can kind of see how the tournaments also from a DraftKings standpoint play out differently. It's less about the finishing points and more about how many birdies are you making? Are you getting the 3 in a row streak at just about every round? Are you getting that under 70 bonus? So I think as we have a couple different variety of tournaments coming up, just kind of changes the sweat a bit, and I feel like swings a lot more. Whereas when you have those tournaments where single digits are winning it, it's kind of a slow and steady sweat because not many points are swinging, and lots of eagles also happening on some of these par fives. Like it was pretty regular for people to be getting an eagle every round. So yeah, fun tournament. Solid field, and as we look forward to this coming week with the Rocket Mortgage, not so strong of a field. I was actually looking at the market page over on the OTM website, and if you check out the 24-hour volume, you'll notice there's a lot of names that you're not too familiar with. And my thought is that because it's such a weak field, there's these guys that don't play in a ton of the tournaments, but have really cheap Reignmakers cards out there. And so people are going out and scooping those up, probably just to be able to field lineups. I mean, Joshua Creel, Richard John, like who are these guys playing in the upcoming? Or some of them are. Kevin Roy looks to be playing. Zach Blair just coming off of his performance, one of the top movers. So definitely tapping into a different collection of golfers for this week. Once you get outside of the top, like I'd say 15 or so, 20 names. After that, it gets pretty dry this week.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that is really interesting too with these courses that are, Birdie Fest. A lot of people, didn't think that River Highlands would essentially be a Birdie Fest right away. Like there wasn't this like overwhelming, it was going to play, there was going to be guys that were 10 plus under par, but there wasn't the sense that 23 under would win the tournament. I think that was a much bigger or much lower number under par than most people would have thought. But I think when you put an elevated event in these fields and on these courses where if they get the right conditions, they can just fire at pins, you're getting so many of the best players in the world, and you're bound to have somebody out there making a ton of birdies. I mean, Keegan makes a ton of birdies in the first couple of days. Ricky goes, Ricky, not a Reignmakers card, but I think shoots his lowest ever he shoots a 60. When that happens, everyone has to just start firing at pins. And all of a sudden, when everyone plays aggressive, you're bound to find, 20 guys that are going to go way, way, way under par. And that's just how good these guys really are. So I think it is good to know like which golfers can really go low. And when you start to get aggressive, like that really changes everything from a fantasy golf standpoint. When you got guys, close to 20 under par, everything kind of changes. You need streaks, you need bogey free rounds, you need every point really to run up the leaderboard. So I do think they are fun events. There's a lot more kind of to track, but I also think those swings are some things that are really hard to understand your position on the leaderboard. That all rounds under 70, I remember a couple of years ago, changed a lot for like how I was sweating fantasy golf in one tournament. And then I was like constantly thinking about this all arounds under 70 bonus. But you really see it at a course when it was par 70. You really see it when that's the case. So yeah, I think we have a couple of events coming up between the John Deere Classic, between the Rocket Mortgage that we're going to talk about. But John Deere, Rocket Mortgage, and the Travelers, definitely events that lend themselves to more birdies. So the next couple of weeks, you're going to wanting to be putting your lineups together, knowing that you're going to need these guys in your lineup to make a ton of birdies in order to win. All right, I think that covers at least my thought. Oh, I guess one other conversation, one other topic. I don't know if you saw this, but I saw this earlier today when I was looking. Rory had some interesting comments on the golf course in general and what he thought. Said that the golf course was essentially obsolete when the conditions don't lend themselves to playing as fast and firm as the courses would want them to. I think it's an interesting comment. I think people are going to always take every elite golfer's comments and kind of try to make more of a story out of them than is really there. I think Rory's just saying that the game is different now. The ball goes further. Every guy hits it pretty far. These courses where it has played the same for the last 5 to 10 years. They're going to surrender more birdies to these guys now. The ball's further. The ability that these guys have to know exact distances and know every single thing about the course, I think is just so paramount. And to me, it just makes the game, more interesting. I don't think Birdie Fests are any less interesting than other events. I think they're just different. And I guess when you start talking about the history of golf, that's when some of the conversation changes. But I don't know if you had any takes on what Rory said, but I thought he pretty much just laid out exactly what his thoughts were in terms of the course and the defense that the course had against these golfers.
Yeah, everyone's just so good. They hit it so far, they hit it so consistent that some of these courses are, gonna have trouble defending against that. And we've seen the chatter about the quote unquote rollback and the idea of that. And, I think it's just the nature of the game, not just of golf, but of all sports. Athletes are getting better. They're going to continue to get better. You look at the NBA, the way it plays now versus the way it played years ago, the number of 3-pointers that are being made and the percentage at which players can make 3-pointers. Like, I think it's pretty similar there. And NBA games are just higher scoring now because you can't defend against that. Right. So I think it's just a natural thing in pretty much across the board in all of sports. And Rory just telling it like it is. And I think that's what we expect from Rory. So makes sense to see that, and good to see Rory in the mix yet again. Another top 10 for him. So he continues to be right there firing, and I think we're going to see a win from him in the near future before the end of this season.
Yeah, I completely agree. What I did get asked this in our Discord, and I thought it was interesting. I didn't get a chance to take a look at the numbers for him just yet, but looked like Rahm missed the cut, was shot 2 under. What's your take on the state of Rahm's game, and if there's any cause for concern? To me, it just feels like one of those weeks where he maybe just didn't make putts, or just didn't see the ball fall in the hole, didn't hit it as good as he typically does. Any thoughts on Rahm missing the cut there?
Yeah, definitely seeing that Rahm doesn't have quite the week in, week out consistency that Scheffler is showing in any tournament that he plays. But I'm not worried about it. These types of tourneys are never really where I expect Rahm to thrive. I always expect him more on the difficult tracks versus the Birdie Fests. I think he's even made comments in the past alluding to the fact that he's not a big fan of some of these Birdie Fest, putting fest type of tournaments. So I didn't really look into his specific numbers. Always surprising to see Rahm miss the cut, like regardless of the course that they're playing, the field that it is. Never really expect to see that happen, but also not concerned. And I'll be locked into Rahm come time for the Open, no doubt about that.
Yeah, Definitely agree there. And then sorry, last bit here. I think it was interesting, between some guys that were trying to find their game a little bit. Justin Thomas seemed like he might have found something a little bit. Sanjay Im makes the cut, makes a nice run, finishes, I believe, 11 under. And then Max Homa, kind of the third one on that list there, didn't play as well as those two guys. But I do think, trying to keep track of guys like JT, guys like Homa, guys like Sanjay Im, to me, it's all about if they can find something, if they can find a little bit of something in their game at an event like this, where they go out and they make the cut, they make some birdies, you start to get that feeling back. And then you come into, we're all sort of looking at the Open Championship here in 4 weeks as the event that most of these guys are prepping to play. You already see it at the Rocket Mortgage where Tony Finau is defending, so he's back. But I expect these guys to be taking a couple of weeks off, maybe getting back into a more regimented practice routine. They had a heck of a run from, before the Open, the US Open, then the US Open, then they play the Travelers here because it's an elevated event. There's so much money up for grabs. So I do think, we're going to see guys over the course of the next couple of weeks taking some weeks off, playing a week here or there in prep for the Open Championship. I know Cantlay, I believe, is committed to the Scottish Open and a couple of other guys. So it'll be interesting to see what fields look like in the next couple of weeks. It is interesting also to note that in the next couple of weeks from a schedule perspective, not this week or next week, but after that, we have 2 weeks in a row where there's multiple tournaments on the same weekend. And it looks like DraftKings will have events for both the Barbasol Championship, which is going to be held the same week as the Genesis Scottish Open, and then the week of the Open Championship as well, the Barracuda Championship will have contests as well. So it'll be interesting to see what the fields look like in those alternate events. I think that's something to keep in mind for anybody out there kind of picking up guys in the marketplace and things like that, or things to keep in mind, especially for once we get some ideas on who's going to be in those fields. But yeah, I think next couple of weeks will be interesting to see how the Rocket, following up the Rocket Mortgage, how the John Deere turns out, and then where guys are thinking for prep in terms of the Open. But we'll keep an eye on fields, strength of fields, and of course, you'll be able to find all the data on Reignmakers pricing and odds on our site over at otmnft.com. All right, let's get into the Rocket Mortgage held at Detroit Golf Club. Believe it's the 4th year for the tournament to be held at Detroit Golf Club. A couple of times we've had guys at the top of the board win it. Last year, Tony Finau, odds were pretty short if they weren't the shortest to win the event. But prior to that, we had Cam Davis win it, who was a pretty long shot winner. And yeah, I think there is a recipe at this course for bombers having more success and being able to score a bit easier at Detroit Golf Club. So I do think guys that can hit it a long way and use that bomb and gouge approach tend to end up being in a bit better shape than somebody who just routinely always is better with irons and approach play. I think this kind of course setup where we know birdies are going to need to be made, we're going to want to look at putting, and putting is just really hard to predict. So that's why in 1 week, when the favorite goes out and putts really well, like last year with Finau, he wins the tournament. And when, Cam Davis, someone who was 150 plus to 1, comes out and has a hot putter that week, you see him rise up the board. So I do think that in these kind of events, it is very dependent on putting, which is a really difficult statistical category to predict. And you can get all kinds of crazy winners. But if you just look at this field and, you rattled off you said top 20, I'd say maybe it is even limited to only the top 10 players. But after, top 10 guys where you're getting below Brian Harman and Harris English, it's kind of open, in my opinion. There's probably 30 plus golfers that are all pretty much the same in some way, shape, or form, and can get hot on any given week. And over the course of 4 rounds could win a tournament. So I do think these events with a little lesser fields are always pretty interesting to me. And I tend to build my teams, for entering them into the guaranteed contest even more in events like this. If you've got a couple of guys that you could put in your lineups as an anchor, if you're holding on to any of Finau, Matsuyama, JT, Homa, Morikawa, you had a couple of those guys you can put together. And then all of a sudden you add in, anybody down in the middle of the board I think your lineup could be live to win. Especially if you get 5 of 5 through the cut. So, what's your take, TJ, on these events where we've got a pretty strong, I'll call it just tier one, top 10 guys, and then sort of everybody else after that?
Yeah, so just so everyone knows the field that we're looking at here. So we've got Tony Finau, top of the board at 12-1, Hideki Matsuyama, Justin Thomas, both at 16-1, Max Homa and Colin Morikawa, 18-1, Tom Kim, 20-1, Sungjae Im, 22-1, Keegan Bradley looking for back-to-backs at 28-1, and then Cam Davis, Brian Harman, Harris English, a couple other guys there, Sepp Straka. I'd say that's kind of the cutoff there, like you mentioned, right in that Brian Harman kind of 35 plus 3,500, and then it gets thin rather quickly. Which I even head over to check out my collection from the lineup builder, and just putting together, I already noticed that I didn't have as many options as I'm used to having on a week-to-week basis. So maybe a good week that if you're either looking to play a little less volume and just kind of throw in what you have, or if you want to hit the marketplace, there's definitely some cheap cards that, as Coop was saying, can become more relevant this week than they typically would. When you only have, 5 to 10 kind of top tier golfers in the field, it becomes much more likely that somebody from this middle of the pack or even the bottom of the pack has a chance to get hot with the putter, make a bunch of birdies, and run towards the top. Yeah. So in terms of like the guys at the top of the leaderboard, I think you can can play all of them and should play all of them. If you have them in your collection, just kind of go ahead, fire them in. I wouldn't even be too worried about trying to get crazy unique or anything like that. I know you have a nice elite lineup that you're looking at, Coop. So be fun to sweat that this weekend. And then as we get towards more towards the bottom, Chris Kirk is a guy that is always someone that's on my radar, and I think he kind of pops again this week. Taylor Moore has not been good at all lately, but has at least shown some upside with a win in the past. Also someone that can get hot with the putter and can make those birdies. So he popped for me, but there's not a Brendan Todd, somebody that can always roll in putts. So I had my eye on him too. But yeah, it's a little ugly this week. And my first glance, there wasn't a ton that was necessarily jumping off the page to me. I think it's really a week to embrace the chaos, utilize the cards that you have, mix and match them as you see fit, and don't try to overthink this one too much, because I think we're looking at a bit of a wild card weekend ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think you can tell that just straight from the betting odds, right? Like somebody like Brian Harman, I was trying to pull up odds from the Travelers, but I believe Harman was like plus 6,500, 65-1 to win the Travelers. Obviously played fantastic, but when Brian Harman is 35-1 to win a golf tournament, you just know that the field is really not as strong. Even the guy like Finau, top of the board, 12-1. Like to me, it's really hard to be, if I'm not really a big golf outright better, don't really have a strategy for that. Love fantasy golf a little bit more, but in general, like Tony Finau at 12-1 to me to win a golf tournament is just a crazy bet to make. I don't care what tournament he's in. I don't care if he's defended five times. Getting 12-1 on your money on Tony Finau is just not good enough, in my opinion.
And even so JT is up at 16-1. We were just talking about him recently. How he was 50-1,
50
in a
plus
recent
to 1
tournament. Yep. Yeah. So I also think it's not a. If I'm outright betting at all this week, I would not take anyone from the top of the board. I'd be throwing any kind of long shot darts.
I think you're looking 40 plus to 1.
I think even more. Yeah.
I think you're very comfortable at 100 plus. Yep. I agreed with that for sure. I think you're trying to take flyers, and it'll be interesting to write the Tuesday article this week. I love using the betting ranges just because it's easy to try to essentially just tier out the golf course and the field. So it will be interesting to write the long shots column, because I have a lot more work in the long shot category to do this week than I typically do, where we have a lot of guys at the top of the board with a lot more win equity. So I do think it will be quite interesting. You mentioned a strong elite lineup. Yeah, I've been pretty, and this is, we talked about the difference in Reignmakers compared to just traditional golf DFS. you really can become kind of like, uh, connected to your collection. 3 guys that have been in my elite, team every time they're in the field is Tony Finau, Hideki Matsuyama, and then one of either Adam Scott or Brian Harmon. Just been the 4 elite golfers that I have the elite cards for, that I'm very comfortable playing in just about any situation. So just turns out that I have Finau, Harmon, Hideki elite cards. So those 3 guys. And then I also have Tom Kim and Max Homa rares. I was sitting here, and this is what happens when you get a tournament like the Rocket Mortgage, sitting here debating, like, is Max Homa good enough to play in this top lineup based on his current form? I think it's a fair question, quite frankly, just because Max Homa has been such a different golfer. He certainly has just so much more elite talent than a lot of other guys in this field. But you have to start looking into recent form and recent history. For now, I'm on the on the side of just jam them in. Don't let fancy play syndrome come into play here, and just put the best golfers into the top team. So I probably 90% of the time I'll end up with Max at the top lineup, and maybe another 10% of the time I'll end up with somebody else, but we will see where we go. I'll obviously host the Wednesday lineup builder show, where I'll have most of my final decisions made. So if you're out there listening to this, tune in to that Wednesday show. Love to go through all the listener questions and any comments, thoughts, things that you guys have that you want to talk about related to Reignmakers and just fantasy golf in general. So yeah, pretty strong top team. I noticed the same as you, though. When I looked at rare, I've become accustomed to having 25 to 45 rares in play on a given week, and this week I only have 21 rares in play. And when you take the strategy that I'm taking, where I'm playing all of my best rares up in those elite contests, I'm going to have a pretty thin rare roster construction this week, most likely. So yeah, I've got 11 elites in play, 21 rares, and then 28 cores, which I've been using my own collection as a little bit of a barometer for entries for Reignmakers. So I guess by that measuring stick, maybe there's less entries in the tournament this week. So we'll keep an eye on that. The guaranteed elite contest has been like 2,000 or so, and then I think the rare elite rare guaranteed contest has been pushing like 4,000 plus. So we'll keep an eye on total entries there. But as always, you need to beat a lot of teams, a lot of lineups in those guaranteed contests to win. But I think they give you the best chance at clawing back your investment and the biggest upside shots at continuing to pound that ROI out there. So, yeah, I'm looking at this. You mentioned Taylor Moore. I'm looking at this odds board, trying to find some guys in the middle ground. I know both of us have been on this guy before, Joseph Bramlett. I've mentioned, guys that can hit it a long way and kind of taking a bomb and gouge approach. Nobody hits it longer than Bramlett. The question will just be, is Bramlett's putter good enough to make enough birdies? The putter still has to cooperate no matter what. If you hit it to 10 feet on a lot of holes and you can't make 10 footers, you're going to struggle at Birdie Fest type events. You need a hot putter. This is a Donald Ross design, so there's still going to be some really intricate undulations on the greens, known for a lot of the way he uses, greens, and a lot of the way they use like slopes and things like that. So there's going to be some bending putts, as there always is. And I'm sure the greens will be running quite quickly. So it'll always matter on if Bramlett's putter wakes up. And then a couple other guys who we like as well, who've been really hot. Mark Hubbard. I like Hubbard. His game has been fantastic. Probably some of the best golf he's been playing. And then after that, it kind of is a little all over the place. Yeah, I'm seeing, somebody like Adam Svensson, 63 in the world, all the way down at 110 to 1. So I think that's a little bit indicative of where his game is currently. And then you add in a Birdie Fest when you need to make birdies, it can be hard. So I think there's some guys definitely at over 100 to 1 that could win this event. My guy Dylan Wu missed the number on the cut. He was my long shot pick last week. Missed the number on the cut. He's back on the board at 130 to 1. I still think Dylan Wu it will be the same question as everyone else. Same question of what we've been saying. Can the putter heat up enough to make enough birdies? I think that in his Friday round, he didn't make a bogey. Only made 2 birdies, but didn't make a bogey. Was clean. Just didn't make enough birdies to make the cut last week. So yeah, I like Woo a lot. I like his game. If his putter can heat up, he can definitely run up the board in an event like this, in a field like this, no doubt. So those are a couple names in the middle of the board and a little bit further down the bottom of the board that I definitely will be looking to early. And like I said, check out the Tuesday article. We'll pick a guy at the top, the middle, and a long shot to go alongside the picks that I make this week. What about you? Anybody else, middle or long shot that you got your eye on?
I got my eye on one guy that I was going to talk about as my winner pick.
Oh,
But
okay.
I'll
Let's get
hold
into
him
it.
back
Let's
for a
get into
second.
it.
Yeah, so this is someone we've talked about him on the show before. I think you've got him in your collection. He's sitting at 80-1 here this week, so we're going with a long shot. He's got two recent top tens at Charles Schwab in the Memorial, 2 second place finishes so far this year. It's Adam Schenk. I like Adam Schenk. He's can do a little bit of everything. Can get hot with the putter. Has been putting, I'd say, pretty decently, and that has resulted in some of his his 2 second place finishes. Gained 5 and 7 strokes putting. I like to see that. Whenever we're getting into a birdie fest, as we said, you're going to need to make a lot of those like 8 to 15 footers. Over the past 50 rounds, he ranks 7th in the field in putting, 19th in DraftKings points, and then is also in the top 50 in all the strokes gained stuff. So yeah, embracing a little bit of the long shot this week. Going to go with Adam Schenk as my winner pick. Aaron Rai was also someone that I did give consideration to. I feel like that's someone who is going to win one of these tournaments some week, and I think it's more likely to happen in one of these types of fields. So Aaron Rai, not someone that I look too often, but he does just feel like a guy that's going to pop out of nowhere and get a win. So I think he's another, like 65-1 or something type of guy. So had my eye on him too, striking the ball well, coming off 2 nice results here and 3 top 25s in their last 4 starts. So I do like Aaron Rai as well in that mid-range long shot kind of category.
Love it. I want to circle back on Shank. Any thoughts on what I think was your guy or one of your go-to guys? Hasn't been playing as good recently, but talk about bombers. Any thoughts on Luke List? I know you're kind of like I believe you've been a little bit of like a Luke List whisperer. When you like Luke List, he seems to play well. Interested in your thoughts on Luke List here this week.
Yeah, I generally like Luke List as a golfer. I actually tend to like him more in harder events because he can't putt. So like, he'll make some birdies because he'll put it right next to the pin and be able to just tap it in. But generally speaking, he's one of the worst putters on tour. And so in Birdie Fest, like I definitely like his chances to make the cut and do well. But in terms of making enough putts to actually win the tournament, just don't quite have the confidence there. But I don't mind Luke List. I mean, always strikes the ball well and has actually the last 5-6 tournaments been putting pretty reasonably. So okay, all right. The more I look, the more I can come around to it. I've got Luke List in my collection, so I'm always playing him every week. But I'd say it's not my favorite week for him. But the more I'm looking at it, I like some Luke List this week.
Yeah, he definitely stuck out to me. I also, for those of you guys that are playing Reignmakers, I also really like to use DraftKings pricing as kind of I know we talk a lot about betting odds and we have betting odds. I tend to use DraftKings pricing alongside betting odds just to get a sense of like where guys fit into the puzzle piece of the collection of golfers that are out there that are playing in a specific event. I think pricing on DraftKings, especially on weeks like this, it can lend itself to some insights that maybe aren't instantly apparent otherwise. I do coming back to your pick and we'll solidify the fact that it is your winner pick, Adam Schenk. I mean, this guy, he's missed 2 cuts in a row, US Open and now the Travelers, but in general he definitely just has this like swingy upside where if you catch him on the right week, he can play lights out. So, I like him in a field like this. I also like it because when you're a golfer who stepped up, got into the US Open, when you're, I believe he's, what is he, 50th in the world now, 53rd in the world now, or something like that. Where do I have him here? Yeah, I got him here. Let's see. 8,001. Yeah, 52 in the world. When you're 52nd in the world, you kind of come into an event like this. I have to believe that you look at the list and you say, damn, I competed at the Charles Schwab. I finished second in a playoff. Like, I can win this golf tournament. And when you come in thinking I can win this golf tournament versus you come into the US Open and you come into the Travelers and it's a loaded field, there's a ton of money up for grabs. You probably put a little more pressure on yourself and you don't come in as confident, or, you come in a little differently. And I don't know, I'm not a pro golfer here. I'm speculating, but I just have to believe that somebody in Adam Shank's, team, somebody around him is saying, hey man, look at this field. This field's worse than, what Charles Schwab was. You can go out and win this golf tournament. I think the mental side of golf continues to be something that interests me and intrigues me a good bit with all of these guys. So when you hear the stories, when you hear how hard they work, when you hear what they're going through, the mental side of the game is a big part of it. So, I'm kind of ignoring the US Open miscut and even last week's miscut. I think Shank's playing himself into these bigger events, time in and time out now, and he's getting more experience. You come out of those events into a field like this, and I think he could just wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to go out and win this golf tournament and play really, really well. So I think his game also rounds out a good bit for a course like Detroit Golf Club, where he kind of is spread out and can do everything pretty well. It's not like he has a singular point of failure, something like Luke List, where we know the putter is going to be a struggle. I don't think that Shank is like that, where he has some good game all the way through the bag if he can turn it on. So if he finds his A game, look out. I love Adam Shank. So that pick is nice. I like it. I have a little Adam Shank in my collection too, and I always like when my collection lines
There we
up
have
some
it.
of the thoughts that TJ has. Always a good thing for sure.
Let's go.
Beautiful. I don't think I have anything else. We covered a good bit. Any final thoughts for you otherwise before we close the show today?
No final thoughts. Good luck this coming week. Always good to see people continuing to have success in the Discord. So hopefully see some more green screenshots coming up this week.
Yeah, it's a little less prize pool this week. Obviously, on DraftKings, we're not at a deluxe. We're, I believe, are we standard this week, or are we premium this week? We're premium, yeah, premium this week. Just wanted to confirm. So a little less prizing, but also most of the guaranteed contests still have that carrot at the top. I know Elite still has a $10,000 prize pool prize at the top for first place. So still a lot of money to be won. There will be some big winners this week. So go out there, build your best teams, and get them into the contest. And you never really know. This is a week where I could hear TJ and I talking on Monday, talking about golf variants, and somebody at 200 to 1, 150 to 1 taking this thing down. So get your teams in there. And like as always, every week, tomorrow late night tomorrow, early Wednesday, I'll have an article out, highlights my picks across the board. And then Wednesday, I'll be back for a solo lineup builder show. If you've got questions, comments, thoughts, want to chat golf, want to chat Reignmakers, would love for you to tune in. Last week, we previewed our golf fantasy game, Blitz Fantasy Golf. We gave away a pack. I'll twist TJ's arm into being able to do that again this week. So if you haven't seen Blitz, if you haven't played Blitz, tune in on Wednesday. We'll rip open a Blitz Fantasy Golf pack and we'll give it away to those of you that are able to tune in for the show. So looking forward to seeing you all. And I think that will do it for this week's episode of the recap and preview show. He's TJ. I'm Cupe. We will see you all later this week and talk to you on the Discord. Later.